High drama being reported at the Thiruvananthapuram airport after passengers tried to enter an Air India plane's cockpit. Sources say that a 3-hour delay had resulted in the passengers creating a ruckus. In desperation, the pilot of the Air India Express flight to Abu Dhabi pressed the hijack button, leading to more panic. Well, let me go across to Praveen, who joins us on the phone line with more on the story. Praveen, what exactly happened?
Rukmini, there's the Air India Express flight from Abu Dhabi to Kochi that had actually flew down to Kochi, but there were heavy rains in Kochi and there was poor visibility. So the flight took a turn back and they came to Thiruvananthapuram and stopped here. But the passengers were not really informed about this incident and passengers got really irritated after this delay. Then the passengers allegedly tried to enter into the cockpit and get over this pilot. Then pilot sent this message across saying that there is a chance of the flight could be hijacked. And then this CISF personnel have surrounded the flight and deboarded the passengers from the flight. And there's heavy drama going on in airport. And there's an emergency security meet has been called now at the airport.
So Praveen, if I understand correctly, it is the passengers of the flight itself that stormed the cockpit.
Yeah, that is what the pilot has informed the security personnel at the ground. Is that the passengers entered the cockpit and tried to ask him for the delay. But it is not very clear that as we don't have any confirmation on this whether the passengers really entered the cockpit or not. But okay, it is a fact that the pilot had sent a message saying that there is a hijack possibility. Rukmini.
All right. Let me also go across to Athar Khan, who joins us for more on the story. Athar, what are the intelligence sources telling us? What exactly is playing out back there in Thiruvananthapuram? The initial report suggests that it is the passengers itself who have gone out of hand and stormed the cockpit because there was a delay in the flight. But the pilot has pressed the hijack button. What's happening?
Well, that's right, Rukmani. As you know, this express Air India flight is the flight. Remember, there was an accident in Mangalore earlier. There was an air crash. Thereafter, they do not take any chance whenever there's an inclement weather. Normally, there's fog, some sort of mist over that area. That's why the flight had to take unscheduled stop. Following which, the passengers got panicky because they claim that there's a practice. Whenever they are asked to deboard, then they have to take a taxi and go all the way to Kochi. Therefore, there was some apprehension. Some of the passengers got off, but some 15-20 of them had surrounded the cockpit, what we are learning from our sources, and they were insisting that the pilot takes the flight onward. But that did not happen. Also, there was this apprehension that there could be a hijack. That's why he pressed the panic button. A full emergency, Rukmani, was declared, and as Praveen was telling you, a committee had been called to analyze the entire situation, the bomb threat and the hijack threat. Now what we are learning from our sources is that it has been called full emergency, which was declared, has now been called off. But then there is this problem that whenever there's inclement weather, the Air India flight takes an unscheduled stop there.
Right, Athar, if I understand correctly, now it is believed that it is the passengers who are trying to take control of the plane and not really any terrorists at this point in time.
Well, that's right. But then we know that there is no compromise with, when it comes to Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. They do not take any chance. And whenever a pilot presses the hijack button, it is immediately a full emergency is declared. There is this committee which, assesses the situation, and then they take prompt action. NSG is called in. The entire drill is there. But then in this case, they realized that the situation was not as serious.
All right, do stay on with us, Athar and Praveen. Let me also go across to Gaurav Sawant, who joins us live from the newsroom for more on this story. Gaurav, it seems that it is the passengers that were trying to storm the cockpit here. Was the pilot right in pressing the hijack button? What is the standard operating procedure in these kind of situations?
Given the available information that we have in public domain so far, the pilots are absolutely right in what they did. The standard operating procedure is that the pilots will lock themselves in the cockpit, press the hijack alarm, it's an emergency alarm, and then wait for ground forces to do the necessary tasks at hand. The main task is to ensure nobody can force the pilots to take the aircraft anywhere. They've locked themselves inside. What the passengers are doing is incorrect. For whatever reason, if there is a delay, it is for the aviation company, in this case Air India, and for the airport authority to decide what's the next course of action. What the passengers, from the information we've got, what they're doing, trying to force open the cockpit, is completely incorrect. Post 9/11, also post the hijack of IC-814 from Kathmandu, the rules are very clear. Pilots will lock themselves inside the cockpit, press the emergency alarm, and wait for ground forces to take over and get and sort out the situation. The passengers who've done that, from what we've been told by police sources, will be in serious trouble, because it's a very, very serious offense what they're doing in their anger. There is a CCTV camera which focuses both inside the cockpit and inside the passenger area, where every bit of this information would duly be recorded with audio, and that of course is a matter of detail, is a matter of investigation subsequently what led to this current situation. But the pilots are absolutely right in what they've done, is what our sources are telling us, Rukmani.
Right, Arthur, let me come back to you. Aren't there air marshals on flights to take care of these kind of situations, or do the passengers really overpower these security officials who are placed in the aircraft?
Well, of course, Air Marshal is deployed in all the flights. But in this situation, obviously he must have assessed the situation, and he would have realized that it's just the passengers who are, who have this fear that they will have to take a taxi and they'll have to go all the way. Therefore, he did not react in the, in a very serious manner. But then the pilot was in his own right to, sort of assess the situation, and he was apprehending maybe the passengers would force him to take the flight, and that's why he pressed the panic button, the hijack button. But we know that the marshal is always there, but we have yet to know what was his exact reaction inside on board the flight.
All right, let me, Arthur, do stay on with us. Let me also go back to Praveen and take a check on what is happening. Praveen, now that the situation is fairly clear that it is the passengers that have become unruly and they have been trying to storm the cockpit, the pilot locked himself inside the aircraft and pressed the hijack button. What is the course of action that is being taken there? Bring us up to speed on the latest situation.
Yeah, I've been told by the airport sources that this passengers who tried to be unruly with the pilot could be arrested for the offense. As Gaurav rightly pointed out, it's a serious offense, trying to enter a cockpit with a high security zone. So far the situation is under control at airport. There is no major panicking happening there. We could see the passengers out of the flight. But however, this is a case we have to understand why the people become unruly. Because I've been told by the sources that there was heavy rain in Kochi, and that was why the pilot had to turn back to Thiruvananthapuram airport for landing. But if that information had been passed on to the passengers on time, as it is the case in such emergency, then there is no chance for the passengers to go unruly. So we should get to know why they become unruly. Even if there is a 3 hours delay, it is nothing in the control of Air India or in the hands of the pilot, because it was because of the bad weather.
All right, Praveen, just hold your thoughts there. We have Denzel, who's a civil security expert. He's with us on the phone line. Denzel, thank you for talking to Headlines today. What is the protocol in these kind of situations? We have a situation where the passengers tried to storm a cockpit and the pilot had to press the hijack button to alert the authorities. But was that the right thing to do? What is the protocol in these kind of situations? What would the pilot do?
One who tries forcibly to try and break himself into the cockpit is to be treated as a terrorist. A terrorist, nothing less than that. And the pilots and the crew have to take action accordingly. So what the pilot did was kept the door closed and pressed the hijack button. That's very correct. Now, how do we know who these people are who's attacked? How do you know it's not amongst some terrorist plan who thought he'd be discovered when the flight got delayed? So very clearly, there's a SOP that anyone who breaks has to be treated as terrorist, and we definitely keep the cockpit closed and press the button, which the pilot has done very effectively.
Fair point, Denzel. But tell us, what about the air marshals that are usually there, placed in the planes in these kind of situations?
Well, he doesn't. We don't know whether there was or not to start with, and if he was there, he would probably only expose himself when there was a confirmed terrorist or confirmed act of terror on board. In this case, perhaps he kept quiet because he found, in his judgment, he may have felt it only a little civilian unrest amongst the passengers. But he will not expose himself and start shooting straight away. In fact, what has happened is that many passengers came forward, so he doesn't know who to take on.
Fair enough. Fair point, Denzel. Thank you very much for talking to Headlines today. Let me go back to Praveen. Praveen, tell us the latest situation. Have all the passengers been evacuated from that particular airline?
Yes, yes. All the passengers have been evacuated from the aircraft. Now there are the security officials talking to the airline authorities and also to the passengers what exactly they are taking stock of the situation, what exactly went wrong, and also the details about the passengers, who are they. There is some doubts about their if at all they are from some other organization, if they have some other connections. Was it a mass plan already put into action? But so far there is no confirmation regarding all this. They say there's only passengers who got agitated because they couldn't fly to Kochi on time. The further investigation only will tell us what exactly went wrong and why, who all these people who actually tried to barge into the cockpit with me.
All right, let me go back to Denzel, the civil aviation security expert who's still with us on the phone line. Denzel, what will be the charges that these passengers will be tried under, in your view? Will they be facing any serious charges for the kind of behavior they've engaged in?
Since it's on the ground, the circumstances are mitigation. But if it happened in the air, it would be a criminal charge, risking the lives of the passengers. The criminality is we do anything to risk the lives of the passengers. Now, if this happened in the air, we must set an example and make it clear to the public that this can easily end up in a criminal act for people who try to break into the cockpit and be tried under criminal law. And today, with so much of tension, and there's a person on board, and if he finds one or two people, he may shoot.
Right. So it is a rather precarious situation, Denzel, as you correctly pointed out. We have with us on the phone line J.K. Dutt, who is a former chief of the NSG. Mr. Dutt, what will be the security procedures that are followed in this kind of a rather precarious situation?
Well, firstly, I would like to inform you that I am in a place where I do not have any access to the television or any other means of listening to the news. But from what I have been just told by your anchor at your news channel, I understand that these are passengers who have been irritated over something. Now, what was the cause of that irritation is something which will have to be ascertained first. These apparently there is no attempt so far, from what I understand, at trying to take the plane away from that airport to some other place. There has been no demand as such for exchange or for any remuneration or some, funds and things like that, or release of anyone. So apparently, if it is only irritated passengers, then I think they will easily be amenable to talking and settling the matter. It is only a question of somebody approaching them peacefully, and I'm sure that the passengers would listen, provided their grievance is also attended to.
Right. Mr. Dutt, let me apprise you of the situation. We understand that the panic situation which had ensued some time back has now blown over. The passengers have all been safely evacuated from the flight. But what we're trying to understand here is that the pilot was forced to press the hijack button because a whole lot of passengers tried to storm the cockpit. Now, what are the procedures followed in this kind of a situation where the pilot doesn't know who's a terrorist and who's just an irate passenger?
You see, if the terrorists storm an aircraft, apparently they would be armed and they may fire a few shots, they may cause some damage, they may go and threaten the crew or the pilot at a gunpoint or with some weapon. Apparently, this does not seem to have happened in this particular instance. So there may have been something which occurred spontaneously, which may have made the pilot press the alarm button. But this is something which one can ascertain correctly only after having a talk with the passenger. If it is only a question of passengers storming the cockpit...
Mr. Dutt, we understand that the flight had to land in Thiruvananthapuram airport. It was headed from Kochi to Dubai, but due to inclement weather, it was delayed by 3 hours, and this is what got the passengers irritated. This is the information that we have. Apparently, the message was not communicated to the passengers. But the issue is, whatever may be the provocation, an unruly mob cannot try and storm a cockpit. What kind of charges do you think these passengers are likely to face?
I think what you have mentioned, you put the thing in perspective. It was a flight which had to come back because of inclement weather. The flight had initially been delayed by 3 hours. So apparently the passengers were on a short fuse. But whatever it be, it does not give the passengers the license to take the law into their own hands.
Right.
Now what has happened is something which will have to be seen. There are laws which determine the action of pilots, crews, and passengers. And the appropriate section of law, I think, would deal with this. Under the Indian Penal Code, it may perhaps be said that these passengers became irritated and they were trying to force their entry and obstruct the person from performing his duty.
All right, Mr. Dutt. Thank you very much indeed for talking to Headlines today. Let me also now go across to Kapil Kark, who is an aviation security expert. Mr. Kark, in your view, what were the protocols to be followed in this kind of a situation? It's a rather unusual situation where a bunch of passengers storm the cockpit of an airline. Whatever be the provocation, the pilot had no choice but to press the hijack button to alert the authorities at the ground. So what do you think, how should this situation have been handled?
Increasingly in India, Rukmini, we are a lawless society. And in-flight lawlessness is now proven, even that is no exception. This is a tragedy of India. How will you handle protocols? I don't think any civilized society can have protocols for uncivilized people, and that includes the passengers on this aircraft. Whatever may have been the provocations, I don't firstly have all the facts. There may be a flight delay, there may not be good food on board, the passenger service by the cabin crew may be below standard, but that is not provocation enough for civilized people to become unruly in the aircraft and approach the aircraft cockpit. At the moment, most aircraft carry what's called a sky marshal. You may actually have to have 5 or 6 policemen for these uncivilized countrymen of mine, of whom I'm only ashamed and nothing else. And I think Headlines today needs to be equally ashamed. No protocol can be developed for this kind of uncivilized jungle raj which prevails thanks to irresponsible citizens of India.
Right, fair point, Mr. Kark. In fact, we say that there is absolutely no excuse for uncivilized behavior, whatever the provocation. There is no reason that anybody can take law into their own hands. However, do you think that this incident has highlighted what could be a possible future security threat and merits a relook at security procedures? What happens in the future if a bunch of passengers who might well be terrorists decide to overpower the crew and storm the cockpit?
No, that is exactly what I was trying to suggest, Rukmini. This is a test case unless the Ministry of Civil Aviation, in combination with the Ministry of Home Affairs, through the due processes of law in this country which have been established, puts these passengers inside a jail for the next 5 years. You will have repetitions of this, and as I said, you will have more fearful consequences ahead. Our problem in India is that we have a weak governance structure. You get away with murder constantly. Occasionally a person has to go into Tihar jail. So we are becoming increasingly uncivilized, increasingly lawless, and therefore you have provocations of this. This is a test case. These guys must go to jail, whosoever they are. Then you will prevent these incidents. But I know what happens in India. Elections are coming, people have to be satisfied, so they will get away with nothing. Probably somebody will warn them until you have the next bunch of hoodlums who will take over in Asia.
Right, Mr. Kark, thank you very much indeed for sharing your comments with Headlines today. Let me go back to Gaurav Sawant, who's back with us in the newsroom. Gaurav, you just heard Kapil Kark there saying that these unruly passengers must be dealt with to send out a message really for any such future behavior by people. But are they looking at serious charges, or will they be let off with a slap on the wrist?
Look, should the government follow the rule of law, these passengers deserve to go to jail. I've spoken to several pilots who fly Air India and private aircraft, and all of them are saying this kind of unruly behavior is completely unacceptable, should not be tolerated, whatever be the provocation. If pilots were wrong, or aircrew were wrong, or the airlines is wrong, proceed against them legally. No passenger should be allowed to take the law in his or her own hands, which is what these passengers appear to have done. Even if this flight was delayed by 9 hours, even if they were not permitted to come out of the aircraft, or whatever be the reason, they should legally proceed against the airline. They cannot resort to this gundagardi, as one of the pilots called it, and try and take over an aircraft or storm the cockpit. Because should there be an emergency, you cannot afford to take chances. Then the NSG or the law enforcement agency is well within its right to use lethal force against such passengers. Tomorrow you will not know whether it's an angry passenger or a terrorist in the garb of an angry passenger. SOPs are in place. Somebody who tries to storm the cockpit deserves one kind of punishment. Whatever needs to be done to maintain law and order. Should there be some other reason, proceed against the airline legally. Go approach a court of law. You cannot take law in your own hands. What these passengers are doing, Rukmani, is completely unacceptable. It's incorrect. It is against the law. That's what pilots are saying.
Gaurav, do stay with us. Let me also go across to Atir Khan. Atir, can you give us an idea of what kind of charges these passengers could be looking at for this kind of unruly behavior? What kind of punishment they could be looking at?
Well, Rukmini, this case is one of its kind. This is something unprecedented. So, it all depends on the statement which is given by the passengers and the pilot, and then the police and the law and order machinery is going to weigh the statement. Obviously, there's zero tolerance when it comes to air safety. There are very strict guidelines of Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. That is why the pilot had pressed the hijack button. But then it needs to be seen under which sections will they slap them with the Indian Penal Code or Aircraft Act. So if they are booked under Aircraft Act, the ramifications are quite serious. So it needs to be seen what sections will be slapped at them, or whether they'll be let off with a simple warning.
All right, let me also go across to Praveen, who's tracking all the action from Thiruvananthapuram. Praveen, a short while back, that flight was evacuated. Do we have an idea as to whether there have been any arrests? How many passengers were believed to have been involved in the ruckus?
No arrests so far, and the number of passengers who really tried to enter the cockpit is also not clear, because none of them have come out of the airport. All action is happening near the aircraft right now. We'll have to get some security personnel to know what exactly went wrong, and who are these people who really tried to enter the cockpit, Rukmini. So far the situation, according to airport authorities, are under control. There is no need for any panicking. The security personnel have taken over. The airlines officials are in talk with the passengers and also with the security officers. So there is no real threat to the security of the aircraft right now. The situation is perfectly under control, Rukmini.
Right, let me come back to you, Gaurav. Does this incident also bring into focus the fact that perhaps there needs to be a review of security protocols in these situations, considering that here you have a bunch of people who are, from what we understand, unarmed, but in numbers there is strength, and they could have easily stormed the cockpit. One shudders to think what would have happened if some of them were terrorists.
Yes, but storming the cockpit is not easy. The door is armed, it's armor plated. Unless the door is open, you cannot storm the cockpit. That's point one. Point two, there are CCTV cameras inside the aircraft, both inside the cockpit and from the cockpit to look into the passenger cabin. The pilots do not open the door. There again is a standard operating procedure. Even for opening the door for cabin crew, there is a set protocol. There are certain codes. Apart from the buttons that are there at the cabin door, there are also protocols. Should a cabin crew be held hostage and then forced to open the door, only the pilots from inside can open the door. So storming is not possible unless, of course, the aircraft is on ground, the door is open, there are some engineers coming and going. In that situation, again, the pilots followed standard operating procedure, pressed the emergency alarm, hijack alert, which is what they are meant to do. It's now for the ground forces to move in, get these passengers out, hear them out, and as all aviation experts seem to be indicating, take the strictest possible action against the passengers, identify who are these passengers who did it, proceed against them legally, and if should the passengers press charges against the airline, take action against the airline if it kept these people inside for 6 hours, did not give them food, did not give them water, took them to a wrong destination, whatever, that's a matter of investigation.
All right, do stay on with us, Gaurav, Atir and Praveen. We also have with us on the phone line Kanu Gohen, who is a former DGC. Mr. Gohen, thank you for talking to Headlines today. What are your initial reactions to this unprecedented scare which has unfolded at Thiruvananthapuram airport? A bunch of passengers going completely out of hand, taking the law into their own hands and trying to force the pilot to take off. Do you think it merits a review of security procedures?
This is the passengers, why they got agitated, as I know from the media. It is because the aeroplane, instead of landing at Kochi, had landed at Trivandrum. But having said so, the passengers can certainly not take the law into their hands inside an aircraft by agitating or by threatening or by creating a nuisance inside the cabin. Now here comes the role of the airline employees. If the aeroplane had landed, there is a big commercial department in the airline. The people at that airport should have gone to the passengers and looked after them, explained to them that given them alternates of their itinerary, and that is how the passengers needs to be satisfied for the fare he is paying. But the question is, the alarm which you are telling me that hijack alarm has been sounded, I do not think that it is the right thing for the captain to have done so if there is no actual situation of an hijack. Because once the alarm is sounded, either by pressing the frequency as a small button near the hand wheels, or by making a transmission to the ATC, once that has been sounded, then naturally, as per the drill, the aerodrome authorities has to go into action.
Right. Mr. Gohen, in your view, what could the pilot have done in a situation where, say, 15 to 20 unruly passengers are trying to force him to take off, are trying to storm the cockpit, are engaging in unruly behavior? You said that pressing the hijack button was not the best option. But in your view, what else could the pilot have done?
I will tell you. First of all, I am not aware of the ground realities. When the passengers attempted to force open the cockpit door or attempted to force entry into the cockpit. But still the captain had with him the communication facility of informing the ATC, taking the necessary feedback from the cabin crew inside the aircraft, the situation in the cabin. And then he could have asked for the security forces to come into the aeroplane. If the ATC would have been informed on the RT, then they would have certainly reacted appropriately.
Very interesting point, Mr. Gohen. Do stay on the phone line with us. We have with us also on the phone line SS Parisar, who is a former pilot of Air India. Mr. Parisar, thank you very much for talking to Headlines today. You just heard the former DGCA say that perhaps there was no need to press the hijack button by the pilots. You have been a pilot yourself. What do you think you could have done had you been in that position? What would you have done?
Yeah, I agree. You see, on the ground, normally we don't keep the cockpit door locked. Because a lot of staff keep coming, engineers keep coming to sign the papers, the aerospace keep coming and all that. However, in the air, the door is locked electronically. If the passengers have forced their entry into the cockpit, which could be possible, then instead of pressing the hijack button, by pressing a hijack button, we are not only informing the local agency, a lot of other security agencies are alive. This was not the right choice, but he has a RT with him on a radio telephony. He could have informed the tower and all that, and the local security people would have come immediately for the help.
That's a very interesting point. Both the former DGC and a former pilot saying that the pilot perhaps could have just communicated on the RT, on the radio to the air traffic control and apprised them of the situation instead of hitting the hijack button. We do not know why exactly the pilot of the Air India flight decided to press the hijack button. Those details are still awaited. We do not know what really took place inside that flight. So we will reserve a judgment as to whether the pilot did the right thing or the wrong thing in the situation. But we are just getting an idea of how other pilots and other aviation experts view what we know so far. Coming back to you, Mr. Panesar, this situation where a bunch of passengers have gone unruly, does it once again concern you in terms of the security procedures and protocols which are existing right now? Do you think there is a need for a review of those procedures?
I fully agree with you, and the pilots should also be given exercises in the training center that if forcibly some people come, how to handle them. The cabin crew, they should also be trained for this purpose. Because today the time is such that people are getting very aggressive and all that. So they should be know how to handle. And we have all the means to inform the local ground staff, police and all that, where we can call the help immediately. Unless the aircraft is in the air, then you have to decide in the air what is the best situation to control such unruly people. That's why we keep some stewards also on flight, not only aerostewardess, but some boys also who can handle such passengers.
Captain Panesar, of course, there are sky marshals who are supposed to be on board aircraft. Now, if such elements were unable to control these rowdy elements on board the aircraft, why would you think the pilot did something wrong? Isn't it better safe than sorry? Hasn't the pilot done the right thing by pressing the hijack alarm, at least thereby ensuring all agencies are geared up to deal with any eventuality?
See, hijacking situation is a very, very different situation where, you know, the ATC around all the stations and all that, they get alerted. But here you have some different type of emergency which can be controlled. Even some passengers can help, unless he is a hijacker. If it's a local passenger, sometimes people will get who are drunk, they start misbehaving. So the local passengers also come to the help of pilot or cabin crew to control one or two people. Unless the whole cabin has started agitating against the pilot. But pressing a hijack button, I don't think is the right situation to do in this case.
Okay, let's try and Captain Panesar, stay on with us. We also have Kanu Gohel with us. Let us quickly bring in one of the passengers for a ground assessment. Can you tell us what exactly happened on board this Air India Express flight?
Yeah, we are on board on Air India Express flight in Trivandrum.
Go on, tell us what is happening.
Actually, from 6:30 in the morning, they landed here in Trivandrum Airport. Actually, already it was late 2.5 hours from Abu Dhabi and landed on. It's supposed to land on Kochi Airport at 3:30 morning, but because of fog, it landed on Trivandrum Airport at 6:30. And there was the pilot was informed us that there is a delay because of the fog in the Kochi Airport, and they need to refill the flight. And what happened is, till now there is no decisions are taken, and they, after a few hours later, they promised that there is new pilot is coming, and the pilot is there on board, and but nothing is happening here till now. And on board there are a lot of small children and ladies and everyone are waiting inside the flight without any patient, because from the morning itself it is same situation we are facing till now.
Okay, Mr. Premji, did people try to storm the cockpit? Was the cockpit door open when passengers tried to go in?
Actually, nobody tried to enter into cockpit. But the pilot promised us that she will be here till when she creates a solution for this problem. And after that, she said the word, everything means they are trying to take us back to Kochi through road. But it is actually traveling, because all passes are opposing for that kind of movement. So the thing is, the cockpit is near to the entrance door. So all are standing there and arguing with the pilot. That's why she is trying to tell us that actually she is giving a wrong information by telling the passengers enter into the cockpit.
Right. Mr. Premji, can you tell us if there was a ruckus inside the flight, if some of the passengers were unruly in their behavior? How many passengers were involved in this kind of a behavior?
I don't know exactly who all are. I don't think nobody. Actually, the cockpit is highly secured and it is number locked and it is locked. And only the passengers are standing on the door side of the main entrance, and nobody entered into the cockpit. And that's all. Only one or two passengers can stand on that door side. Only that much space is there. Only or that at that place.
All right, we're getting comments from the passenger who was there on that particular Air India flight. Mr. Premji, can you tell us how much time transpired when this entire incident took place, and has everybody been evacuated from the flight? Did the police take in people for questioning? Were you questioned? What was the procedure that was followed?
Actually, police entered into the flight, but nobody has been taken to the custody. And they are trying to, I doubt they are trying to take somebody, but all the passengers opposed, so nobody is taken till now.
All right, Mr. Premji, thank you for sharing your experience with us. Gaurav Sawant and Nadir Khan, do stay on with us. Praveen Kumar also tracking all the latest developments from Thiruvananthapuram as we get you all the latest details of this hijack drama, if you will, on board an Air India flight where unruly passengers tried to storm a cockpit with the pilot pressing the hijack button.